I stood alone in the bridal suite at Willamette Valley Vineyard, staring at myself in the full-length mirror. The dress was exactly right. The seams, the crystals, the way the silk fell. The makeup artist had done a perfect job. My eyes looked larger, my cheekbones sharper, my lips a calm rose. White roses lay on the vanity waiting. I checked my phone again. No messages. No calls. I had checked it so many times my thumb remembered the motion. There was a soft knock at the door. Martha, the wedding planner, stuck her head in with the smile professionals learn to hold even when the world leans on them. "It's time, Caroline. You ready?" I looked out the window over the ceremony lawn. 90 chairs in neat rows, the string quartet tucked to one side, guests murmuring in small groups. I followed the aisle to the front where 3 empty chairs stared back at me like holes in a picture. My throat went tight. "They're not coming?" I asked. Martha tried for comfort. "There's still time." There wasn't. I smoothed the silk of my dress. I could feel the curious eyes already. I could sense the pity like a physical breeze. Tiny hands arranging in my hair and on my shoulders. The doors opened and every head turned as I walked alone down the aisle. It felt like walking through a weather system made of small, sympathetic looks. Ethan stood at the altar. He was steady, calm, the kind of man who loved like an anchor. He smiled when he saw me. He took my hands when I reached him, his fingers warm and real. "I'm here," he whispered. "We're enough." For a moment, his voice pushed back the hollow where my family should have been. For a moment I was a child again, standing in the living room while Mom and Dad fussed over Logan's debate trophy. They arranged it on the mantle, photographed it from several angles. My art award sat in a drawer. I had shown them the certificate that week, pride in my chest. Mom scanned it, said, "That's nice," and turned back to dinner. Dad had ruffled my hair. "Logan needs more support. He's going places," he'd said. "You understand, don't you, Caroline?" Those words had shaped the rest of my life. I tried harder. I studied, won scholarships, built a career, launched a studio. I stacked achievement after achievement into a ladder aimed at being seen. I married the man who made me feel seen in return. I said my vows. My voice grew stronger as I spoke. I chose a future defined by love and by recognition of the truth. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, Ethan's mother wrapped me in a hug that felt like permission. For the first time that day, something in my chest relaxed. At the reception, I let the music lift me. Ethan spun me beneath the string lights, and for minutes I forgot about empty seats and missed calls. My friends were there. Sarah raised a glass and said, "To finding the family who deserves you." That was both balm and wound. Later, stealing away to check my phone one last time, I saw the emptiness. Ethan found me there, leaning against the wall, and put his arm around my waist. "They missed something beautiful," he said. I set the phone down and felt, for the first time, lightness I hadn't expected. Their choice, not mine. 2 years later, I leaned back in my office chair after the acquisition closed. Crescent Motion Studio sold for $21 million. Years of work, nights without sleep, a dozen abandoned weekends. It had all landed precisely where I wanted it to. My team burst in with cheap champagne and plastic flutes. They cheered me. Jen, my creative director, looked me in the eye and toasted. "To the woman who built something while certain people weren't looking." I clinked glasses with the people who had shown up. Then my phone buzzed. A post from Logan on Instagram. Photos of a family lunch I hadn't been invited to. My parents flanking Logan and his wife. Their daughters in school uniforms. The caption, "Family tradition continues." There I was, a name in a long feed. No birthday pictures, no congratulations. My success had become background noise to them. It was not just the photos. It was what they signified, the vacations, the tuition, the houses. Logan's life cost more than his salary alone could carry, and my parents had been quietly propping him up for years, turning their savings into a support system for his image. Meanwhile, I built something real on my own, and my existence barely registered. I closed my laptop and made a choice. It was not a vindictive choice at first. It was a simple assertion: boundaries. I called my financial advisor and signed for a Porsche Taycan in metallic gray. It was extravagant. It was mine. 3 days after the car arrived, my phone rang. "Mom, The cadence of her voice had a particular authority it used for family emergencies. "We need to talk. Family meeting tomorrow." They had seen the car. Now they wanted to be family again. I drove to the house where I'd grown up. The porch looked the way it always had, the vinyl siding a pale, familiar gray. I stopped the engine and sat for a breath. I remembered past porches, the one where I'd stood giving engagement news, where Dad had checked his watch, where they had been polite and distant. They hadn't needed me then. Why now? I stepped onto the porch. The door swung open and my parents stood there, eyes on the Porsche, not on me. "You've done well for yourself," Dad said, the way someone reviews a report rather than greets a child. "No hoop. No, how are you?" Inside, the dining room table was set like a conference room. Logan and Hannah were already there, their faces composed as if we'd spoken last week. There would be no small talk. They wanted money. "Foreclosure," Dad said plainly. "Loan paperwork is here. We need help." The implication was that because I had money, I should be obligated to dive back into the family to rescue them. My hands tightened on my purse strap. "Where were you at my wedding?" I asked. My voice was quiet and measured. I began to list the things that stood out. Graduation ceremonies they missed, my scholarship award, the company launch, the gallery opening, the wedding with my husband standing beside me. For each milestone there had been silence from them. They had reasons. Logan had business obligations. Dad had appointments. Mom had other priorities. Those reasons had always arrived like weather, casual and indifferent. Now their voices tried a new thing: need. "We have been supporting them as best we can," Mom said. "We need you to help." They presumed entitlement. They presumed I would move for the image of family. They misread my absence as a debt I owed. The table shifted a degree. Logan leaned in. "We're family," he said. "When one of us succeeds, we help the others." I thought about the years I had shown up with empty hands because my hands were busy building. I thought about the nights my phone buzzed with congratulations from strangers, while family texts remained rare. I took out my briefcase. I set it on the table and opened it. They leaned forward, ready for account details and signatures. I pulled a single document and slid it across the polished wood. "This is the announcement for the Rivera Media Scholarship Foundation," I said. $16 million. Silence fell and stayed. 16 million. The number sank into the room like a weight. I told them the foundation was named after Miss Rivera, my high school art teacher. The one who'd come to my gallery showings and who had actually seen me. The trust was legally protected. The money were not loans to family. It would be given to young women in media, especially those whose talent went unseen. Logan lost his temper. "You're wasting it on strangers," he spat. They looked at the document like thieves at a table. I told them, "I'm helping the girls who need someone to invest in them. That's what family means to me." I documented the conversation on my phone. I recorded their demands and threats. I left them in that stunned pause and walked out the door. The click behind me was the sound of a choice made. In the days that followed, my family tried everything. My mother called, pleading and then accusing. My father attempted to contact my investors. Logan called business partners who ignored his calls. It became a public spectacle. Logan's attempts to spin a media story backfired when reporters asked why none of them had attended my wedding. The pieces that appeared made their arguments look small, entitled, and petty. My life moved forward. The foundation formalities were finished. We held a board meeting. The press release was written. A legal structure stood between my assets and any family intervention. I arranged for the first scholarships, found recipients with raw talent and nothing else to back them, and the effect was immediate. Applications poured in. The foundation filled a real need. They flooded my office in person one day. Mom screamed about family obligations in the lobby. Security escorted them out. I sent a single email to each, forbidding further contact at the workplace. I asked them to route any family communication through my attorney. Therapy taught me something essential. Boundaries are not punishment, they are protection. My therapist said people reveal themselves under pressure. I had wanted love. They wanted access to my resources. That distinction settled in me like a stone. The media took the story as an example of something larger. a woman who built success without family support. I was asked to speak about the foundation and about my motives. I told the simple truth. Miss Rivera saw me when others didn't. I wanted to pay that forward. Public support grew. The foundation's mission spread. Invitations to conferences and panels arrived. Local business outlets ran stories of the scholarship applicants. I watched the narrative shift away from family drama and toward the work we were doing. They continued with their attempts. Mom's messages veered from sorrow to accusation. Logan's company continued to falter. The family's lifestyle crumpled as their support system, my parents' savings, dwindled. Suddenly their excuses evaporated. I still felt for the kids, for the twins untouched by their parents' collapse. But I did not feel responsible for fixing a life I had not been part of. I kept boundaries. I blocked office visits. I told my team to send any family communications to legal counsel. I had no interest in entangling my life with salvage operations for people who had not shown up for me. Then something shifted. The Portland Chronicle wrote a piece that presented both sides and then asked a simple question. Why had the family returned only when money appeared? Readers responded. Former classmates reached out. Former neighbors shared memories. A cousin I hadn't seen in years messaged a note of support. We always wondered why they never mentioned your success. The foundation succeeded in a way that made the argument beside the family table irrelevant. It was difficult for them to argue with scholarships helping girls who'd been ignored. People who had watched the story see the contrast. This was not revenge rooted in spite. It was justice rooted in priorities. I channeled the energy that might have become bitterness into something that created value. Logan panicked. His house went into foreclosure. The twins had to transfer to public school. The fall of their facade made my parents fragile. They wanted to pretend it hadn't happened, to call it a temporary stumble. I did not pick up those calls. I had protected myself. I had created a legal and moral boundary. I had documented everything. Months later, when my parents called for a coffee and talked about therapy and accountability, I listened. I did not accept everything. I did not reopen my life to old patterns. Instead, I offered an arrangement. Limited contact, supervised by actions and not words. Real appointments with a therapist. A demonstrated outreach to the twins, and an honest accounting. I told them I would consider it once they showed accountability. They left, not satisfied, but used to leaving disappointed when they did not get their way. A public narrative had turned. The scholarship, the press, the way the community rallied. People who had watched my family's attempts to coerce took sides, often mine. The foundation's work continued, and the first scholarship recipients were doing brilliant work. Maya Harrison, a 17-year-old filmmaker, became a finalist for the first grant. She reminded me of everything Miss Rivera had seen in me. Raw talent, a voice waiting to be heard. I mentored Maya. I watched her film unfold. The light in the studio fell across her face as I adjusted an angle. Her thanks was not guilt or obligation. It was a recognition of help that had actually arrived. That mattered more than any apology my family might make. I attended events and accepted awards with people who had stood beside me. My chosen family, Ethan, Naomi, Jen, the team, celebrated the work rather than the flattery. The foundation became my legacy far more than the house on the hill or the cars in a driveway. It was a durable structure meant to open doors. My parents attempted to regain control through public pressure, through appeals to our mutual social circles, through guilt and petition. They found a cold reception in many places. Their friends had watched and judged. The community had a memory more thorough than their selective recollection. In the slow retreat that followed, they tried to send the twins to my office with cards. The act had the transparent manipulation of a curtain hide. I accepted the cards but recognized them as a performative reach. I refused to be baited by crafted sincerity. When the morning of the foundation's public launch came, I was calm. The press release had been planned. The board met and approved the first round of grants. Maya watched her film in the studio, and we cried a little at what had been fixed. I stood at the podium at the Portland Arts Center later that month, and received a Community Leadership Award. Faces in the crowd looked up at me with genuine applause. No empty seats, no missed milestones. The standing ovation felt like real recognition. The next week my parents asked to meet again. This time Dad said, "We should have been there." The sentence hung in the air. A moment of admission. A small opening. I told them I was not closing the door completely. I said plainly I needed to see accountability. Therapy, confirmed steps, evidence of effort. They left without committing. For the first time I felt the truth of a different life. I had not been raised to expect miracles from them. I had been raised to do the work myself. Weeks became months. The foundation moved forward, impacting lives. The scholarship winner enrolled in a program and began work on a short film that later won a festival prize. Each success was a small furnace that burned away the residue of my old hurt. I built a life that did not pivot on their presence. I built hospitals of creative opportunity for girls who would otherwise have been anonymous. For kids whose teachers might one day call them exceptional. Every scholarship, every grant, every young woman who learned she mattered was the opposite of the neglect I had known. My legacy became a mirror of the values that had been absent from my childhood. Attention, consistent support, presence. The family drama never entirely ended. There were small test launches where my parents tried to make contact in public, at events they knew I attended. I ignored or delegated. The only calls I took were those where they had shown clear, verifiable change. They did ask for my help, and I refused to be the default fix for their failures. I had been their child for decades. Now I was their equal, and I set the terms. I made different choices for the holidays. I invited the people who had been there for me. We ate at a long table and laughed without tension. The phone stayed off. It felt good to not be performing. It felt better to be surrounded by people who did not measure affection by assets. Occasionally a letter would come. Mom wrote that they always believed in me. I burned one letter just to watch the edges curl. Words were cheap. Actions were worth more. I took a different path. I answered with action. I continued to invest in creative women. I opened mentorship programs. I established apprenticeships through the foundation. I made sure the money did what I said it would. One autumn morning I was in the foundation offices reviewing portfolios when a young woman walked in with a portfolio in hand. She had photos and a proposal and a fierce, terrified light in her eyes. I sat with her at a simple desk and listened. She had come from a small town and had been working to keep her dream alive. She reminded me of myself. We built a plan. I did not promise anything beyond that I would help. That honesty, that small promise, changed her. The next year she stood on a stage and accepted an award. She said my name in her thanks, not as a distant relic but as the person who'd helped her begin. That was the measure. The people we lifted. Success, finally, became defined in the eyes of others. I had been invisible to my parents for decades. I could not change that. But I could change where my care and funds and attention flowed. I created a circle that made sense. I built a family defined by action, not by blood. Sometimes I drove past my childhood street. I would see my parents walking hand in hand. I would find I no longer felt the ache that had once lurched up like a predator. The ache had softened into an understanding that some relationships remain what they are. And that liberation sometimes comes when you stop trying to get someone to be who they never were. My life had purpose and company. Ethan and I traveled to speak at events. Naomi and I met with educators to build sustainable programs. Jen ran the studio. The foundation continued to operate transparently and with a fierce focus on outcomes. The community that had rallied around me now became a circle that carried others forward. On the anniversary of the acquisition, I hosted a small gathering. People I cared about came. We shared stories. I looked around the room and felt a deep calm. The occasional message from family still cut, occasionally, but far less. Their words could not undo what I had done. They could not claim to have raised me when they had not stood at milestone after milestone. At night I would sit with Ethan on the couch, his hand finding mine. We would review plans for the foundation or watch a movie. We were steady together. He would remind me of certain details when doubt crept in. I would remind myself that boundaries were the only thing that had allowed me to build this life. Once, driving through a part of town where I used to study, I thought about Miss Rivera standing in a doorway at a school open night, pointing at a small portfolio and seeing that this This overlooked brash girl had something. She planted the seed. The foundation was sunlight on that seed. The ripple outwards was real. There were always critics. Some said I should have helped my family. Others said I had been vindictive. I did not try to persuade them. They had not lived my life. I had to live mine. I had to answer the people who deserved help. The Rivera Media Scholarship became a brand for integrity. I spent mornings reading applications and felt my heart open in a way I had never felt when chasing parental approval. We funded education, equipment, internships, shelter when needed, and mentorship. The girls we supported found voice. They sent messages and pictures and work that cut me to the quick in the best way, because it meant I had built something that mattered more than an old grievance. My parents' situation settled. Logan's family reorganized. Money problems rearranged their priorities. They occasionally called, but with a new tone. I answered only when I judged it time. When they finally met the therapist and began a process, I did not melt. I accepted the small step for what it was. A potential seed of change rooted in necessity, not sincerity. I watched for consistency. If they were consistent, I would watch the space and let them back in slowly. If they repeated old patterns, I would step back again. At the Foundation's first gala, I stood on stage and looked at a room of people who believed in me. I thought of the wedding where empty chairs had been a test. The test had ended not with spectacle, but with a steady, slow life made by choices. I had chosen work, not revenge. My family found their own wake. I chose to change other lives instead. The final line of my public address that night was simple. Give to the people who deserve your belief. Invest where someone's attention will not be a rehearsal, but real practice. Don't let the hunger to be seen devour you. Use your visibility to create visibility for others. Over time, I built a life that did not string itself taut across the needs of others who refused to show up. That life was not easy. It cost me tears, nights of doubt, counsel, and lonely calls. It cost me the closure that never came. But it gave me a steadiness I had not known before that I made the decision many people call revenge. But it was not about punishment or spectacle. It was about refusing to be the default resource for people who had not shown up. It was about turning neglect into possibility for others. It was about choosing a legacy defined by who you lift rather than what you hoard. In the end, they learned who they were. I learned who I was. The car in my driveway became less a trophy and more a symbol of an earned life. Not the applause I had wanted from them, but the kind that filled rooms with people who saw me and used that scene to lift others. I will not say forgiveness came easy. It didn't. Forgiveness was a long, hard corridor I walked when I no longer needed to ask permission to exist. The Foundation remains my answer. A living record that to be family is not always about blood, but about action. I drive past my old house sometimes and do not stop. I call when it feels right. I answer certain messages with kindness, because I can. I refuse others because I must. The final equation is simple. I am responsible for my life. I choose who helps carry it. I choose the people who deserve my care. That is how I turned the long absence into a beginning, not of revenge for revenge's sake, but creation where neglect once stood. I turned being unseen into an opportunity to help others be seen. That was the choice that mattered. And the rest was consequences for people who finally had to answer for what they had been. It was not easy. It was not clean. But it was true. And in the end, what matters is this. The lives we lift, the ones we make possible. That is how we measure what we leave behind.